We think he was going to dig down and dig a cellar, and he dug just a little bit too far, and actually dug into the caverns, so we found it completely by accident. This is where we think he dug in, but when he found the caves, he decided he'd go and use the cave as his cellar, because caves and caverns in this area do normally stay around the same temperature of around 45-50 degrees year round. However, you will notice once you get inside, our cave stays a little bit warmer than that, just because of how close it is to the surface. This cave stays a little bit closer to 55-60 degrees, so this will feel really nice. But the farmer did end up having to sell this land, and whoever he sold it to then opened this up to the public, so this will actually be our 78th year taking tours through the caverns. But we go ahead and get on in and out of the weather.
Let everybody go first.
Go ahead.
He wants to.
Damaged. There's no fixing it, no repairing it, so if you'd like to touch one, this is the one you can touch. This is what we call our wishing stone, and it's if you close your eyes, it's going to make a wish. So if you'd like to make a wish on your eye, then you're welcome to do so. So pathway does split here. However, we are going to start at the top of the stairs because the room up there is just a dead end. So I'll turn and come back this way. Then we'll go down those stairs. But a quick heads up about the stairs throughout the cave is most of these were made in the 1940s. So for some reason, some of them are bigger and some are far. And it makes them a little easier to walk up and down. So please watch your step as you go up and down these. But a little bit of key information before we get to the top. If you turn and look at this formation right here, you can see how it's flat compared to all the others. That is what's called a cave curtain. That is actually formed as the water runs diagonally down the rocks, because when the ceiling is sloped or angled like that right there, the water can't drop off that, so it runs all the way down the slope until it gets to somewhere it can. And the more water runs down the slope, the farther down the formation gets. That's a cave curtain. Just keep that in mind. Finally, we'd like to do something else as you go throughout the cave. So that's called cave imagination. It's kind of like looking at clouds. These don't move. So really simple to start with is our cave dragon right here. There's his mouth. His body runs all the way back. Pretty simple in there. Another easy one that people go for is on the dragon's back. It looks like you're a village of people. Or depending on how hungry you are, it could also be a bag of Cheetos. So there's that as well. Just some really simple ones there. But there is actually some very cool looking stuff in the cave. So as you go through, if you have any cave imagination, feel free to point it out, because some people are really good at it. But as mentioned, whenever y'all are ready, we are going to make our way up the stairs first. Alright, so there is quite a bit to look at here. There is a lot to see. However, I am going to draw your attention to the giant jellyfish information here. So this is actually what's called a flowstone. And the easiest way to explain this is at one point this was actually just a big waterfall. And you can see up at the top the rounded edge as water would flow to the side and down the wall. But as the water would flow down the wall like this, it actually created those cave curtains. So this is basically just a cave curtain, 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 all the way across. And that makes those nice lines that you see, and you can actually see in between in a few spots. But where you can see in between these, that's how this formation gets its name, and we do like to call this formation Bridal Veil Falls. And its name does not go alone. It does also go in part with what we're standing on right here, and this is actually what we like to call Lover's Leap. Because early on, I told you how the farmer traded the cave over to someone. When he then opened this up to the public, he actually used to allow weddings in here. So people would come up here on Lover's Leap, next to Bridal Veil Falls, and they would actually get married. The legend then goes that when a couple got married, they would hold hands and leap off the side, and if they truly loved each other, then nobody would get hurt. Yay! Don't really want to try that. But we do know that there were actually 8 weddings that happened in the cave. Out of the 8, 7 of them did actually happen up here, and there was one that was farther back as well. But as far as I'm aware, no one actually has ever jumped off the side of this, at least not yet. So we're doing good, but it is still cool to think about that there were 8 weddings in here.
Would you like to make today the day?
No. I would rather not, please. Yeah, so a little bit of cave imagination up here. Up on the ceiling, you have our map of the United States with Florida, Texas, Maine, Washington. You have our mountains, the Appalachians and the Rockies. It's all there. And then back here by the stairs, you also have looks like Wilson or Groot, or at the very least, this little tiki man. He's a little grumpy today, but he's doing good.
It's raining now.
Yeah, it's raining. And then, as I mentioned, the room back that direction is just a dead end. So if y'all would like to walk ahead of me at your own pace, you're welcome to look around and explore, and I will follow y'all back there.
Making wishes.
It takes a little bit of time. It takes somewhere between like 8 to 12 hours before you start seeing the difference. But then it does become or water, as you can see, it's like dropping water. Sometimes they don't have any correlation or anything. You'll see stuff all over back, like small drop water, small pools, things like that. It's almost a completely different fruit.
Looks like a town.
We stop it if it's like really extreme, but we take it with rain and stuff like that. Alright, so there is quite a bit going on in this room as well. However, I am going to start with the big mess on the side of the room. If you remember as we walked outside, I pointed out that sinkhole, told you guys to cave in. This is that cave in. I did put it up very briefly, so hopefully you caught that. But we do suspect that the cave goes back that direction, somewhere about a quarter of a mile, maybe even half a mile. But then this cave happened and actually closed off that part of the room. At this point in time, there actually is no way to get to that side of the cave. Because all the holes all the way through here don't really go anywhere. Or if you were to dig through, this side of the cave is actually unstable. It probably would cause another cave in. We don't really want to do that. And as far as we know, there are no natural entrances either, so you cannot get in from outside. However, where you get about a quarter of a mile or half a mile that direction, you probably could dig in from the other side and you'd be okay. Just at this point, there really is no way to connect these two parts of the cave. But even though this cave-in did happen, it did still leave us with this really nice kind of smaller area right here. And this is what's commonly referred to as the mayoral room. Because at one point, a mayor of Bristol did actually hold his meetings in here. He really enjoyed being in the caverns, really liked this 55, 60 degree temperature. Plus his voice carried really well, so he didn't really have to yell throughout his meetings. However, that also doubled down on the fact that nobody could talk about him behind his back, because you can hear everything from your here. But he did actually come in and hold his meetings, so really cool. Alright, so are there any questions here regarding sinkhole, cave-in, anything on the side of the room? Are there any questions here? Cool. In that case, we'll head back that direction. We'll head into the staircase. We'll keep moving.
I forgot to ask you if you're making wishes. Quarters
Yes,
and,
ma'am.
okay.
Yes, ma'am. He's like elevation. Right, last ones?
Yep.
You're about like that. Alright, so something I can't mention before we head down the stairs here. I'm going to give you a real quick forewarning about that rock right there. That is actually what we like to call a headache rock. You will have to duck under this and stay low for about 6 or 7 steps afterwards. It will eventually open back up again, just don't stand up too soon. Please watch your head.
Just watch your noggin.
Alright, so we do really like this nice kind of smaller area for a couple different reasons. The first one being is if you turn and look up that direction, you can get a better view of Bridal Veil Falls, along with Lover's Leap there on the right. But as mentioned at one point, that was actually just a big waterfall. So that means where we're standing currently would have actually been the runoff for that. And as it flowed into this area, it actually would have hit that second major creek or river that used to flow through here. The creek was mainly fed by the waterfall up there. So when the water ran out for that, it also ran out for the creek as well. Hence why it's not here currently. But where the creek is not here, you actually can follow the pathways that it used to take. This hole right here would have actually been upstream from the creek at the time. And if you were to crawl through this currently, you would actually get somewhere very close to 3/4 of a mile up there. However, for most of the way back there, there's about 2 inches from your back to the ceiling. So, if you're claustrophobic, you might not have a good time. That is what would have been upstream. You can follow the creek downstream as well. However, you can really only get about 5-10 feet that way before it closes up again. So it's not as impressive, but that is the main reason I like this room, because you can see the whole dynamic between the creek and the waterfall. The secondary reason we like this room is starting right here at this part of the wall, and then working your way all the way across. The entire wall is made up entirely of flowstones. Exactly like Broadwell Falls with those curtains, just on a smaller scale. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that all of these were waterfalls at one point. It just means that there's curtains right next to each other all the way across the wall. Makes a really cool effect. Alright, cool. So are there any questions here? Anything you're curious about or anything you'd like to know?
Not really.
Alright,
You're
cool.
covering it really well.
Flashlights in your pocket.
Oh, sorry. I turned it off.
Yeah, well, that helps out. I mean, they don't give us a
There you go.
script for the tour. There are specific things that we do have to get, like Broadwell Falls, certain things here and there, but for the most part, we kind of mold the tour to get on it. That almost makes it where, like, once a question gets asked enough times, I just start including it in my tour, and it just kind of avoids the question at that point. So as mentioned just a moment ago, this is where we believe the creek flowed through. The next major thing that supports that is going to be this wall right here. So it looks like where the water would come up and swirl against the walls. And as the water is swirling against the wall like that, it did actually start carving out new rooms. And it is pretty underwhelming to see that the rooms start out like small little indentions. Obviously, they don't stay like that. They would eventually end up like this right here. But when the creek ran out of water, we do actually think that it ended up working its way down. Because I mean, if you can see all these huge big rocks and boulders and stuff all here in the middle, all of that actually should be connected up at the top. And if you remember that very first room, I mentioned there was an earthquake. We think the very same earthquake gave that the little extra push it needed to go ahead and collapse. And when it collapsed, it simply just took the creek with it. That's why it's not up here. Because once you get down there, you actually be able to see the creek. That's where the active creek still is. So We think that that's what happened to it. It simply went down. And that did. Hopefully all that made sense. As for heading down the stairs here, I'm going to give you a real quick forewarning about these as well. This is the longest staircase in the entire cavern. We will unfortunately have to come back up these at some point. They're not too bad. The first couple stairs do start out kind of small. However, the farther you get down these, the better they get as well. They're really not too bad. I am required to tell you with these as well. In the event you do not feel comfortable doing them, or you don't feel like you can come up with them later, you do not have to do them. You can wait up here at the top, because once we get down there, we'll just make a big loop, and then we'll pick you back up on our way by. So if you prefer to stay up at the top, you do have the option for that. However, we do have another tour on their way up the stairs here. And it's kind of difficult to go up and down the stairs at the same time. So we're going to give them just a moment to make their way up the stairs. And then once they get up here, then we'll turn around and make
Are there any of those things on the ceiling?
I've seen the sparkles, the calcium crystals.
On the ceiling.
I've seen it on the ceiling before. Yeah.
Well, why doesn't it look like there's any of them on the ceiling?
Because the ones in the ceiling are usually much harder to see.
Because the ceiling is flat.
And it's kind of far away.
Oh, yeah. There are a couple of these things with this. The cool thing about this creek is that it does actually open up into the open world on both sides. And when you look at the creek, it does seem to have a curve to it. You kind of see the flow to the left and right, especially right through here. So if we were to follow the creek upstream, somewhere very close to half a mile, the creek would eventually lead into the open world. The kicker with that is that it does actually lead into a cow pasture, and it flows through that cow pasture through here.
Oh.
So I probably wouldn't drink that water. Not a good idea. But if you were to follow the creek through the cave and then downstream for somewhere very close to a full mile, the creek empties out again. That time it empties out near the road. You actually can see the creek from the road at one point. So it is a little bit cooler in that direction. But where the creek does open up, that's first one is probably the most common question I get, which is about whether or not we have any fish. So there's really not a lot of fish down here, just because there's really not a lot of food for them to begin with. We do occasionally see fish swimming through, like in one side and right out the other. However, there is only one singular type of fish that lives in the cave. It's what's called a sculpin, and it's a small bottom feeder fish. I think it's about 3 to 5 inches at most. And it might sound a little weird when I say this, but that sculpin is actually a terrible swimmer. When it does want to swim, it can propel itself forward in very short, very fast bursts. However, it really can only do that about 2 or 3 times before it's got to sit back down and rest again. So it is kind of stuck in the cave. However, unlike most cave fish, the sculpin is actually not blind or colorless, because where it has the option to leave and get to sunlight, which activates something in its eyes, it can actually see. With color, most of the time the sculpin is a jet black fish with small brown spots on it, so it has that color to it as well. It actually is really cool. That's the main type of fish we have. We do also have crawdads or crazy fish in the cave, which depends where it's from, it's called. And then when the creek level raises due to rainfall, stuff like that, we actually have also seen turtles that get washed in from outside. So we do occasionally see a few of those as well. And then some other animals you might see down here by the creek, but not in it. We do also have salamanders and frogs in the cave, quite a few types of those. Whole assortment of bugs, spiders, stuff like that. And then we do actually also have a small population of bats that lives in the cave as well. However, bats do tend to stay farther back in the darker, uncommercialized parts of the cave because they don't actually like us very much. But we do still occasionally see the bats flying around, so there is still always a chance. It actually is cool. couple of years ago we got a snake because it kept like single digits outside. I guess just warm enough for me to live. I made it. It's only ever done it once because we got this. Made it over half. Where that metal wire is at, right below that. Normally, when the creek raises from rainfall, we'll see it get over the top of that rock in the water, but it won't make it to the light. So it kind of stays in between that. You can kind of see the distance there. But as an experience, that does happen all the time. So are there any other questions here regarding the creek or the animals? Either one of the two? I think the main reason we say like outside animals is because the temperature, and then we actually lock up the cave at night.
And this is the same creek that probably formed the...
One of the two, yes sir. Yes sir. Alright, cool. We'll keep moving, and if y'all think of anything else, just feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'm very glad to see you. So it is actually one of those cold ones that I was talking about. Right as you come up by the bridge here, it is going to be on the left side. Really small white fish, typically not very big. Just kind of sitting right beside the rock right there. Really not very big at all. It's just red white fish. But that is one of those sculpin right there. That's about the average size we see. We probably will get a little bit bigger than that, maybe a couple centimeters, but as you can tell, it's pretty lazy. But these fish are actually algae eaters. So if you know the suckerfish that people put in their fish tanks to clean off the nose of algae, this fish does the exact same thing that one does, just for the creek instead of the fish tank. Keeps the creek very clean, of course. That's a sculpin. And then there actually is another sculpin somewhere throughout the creek. I'll see if I can find it. But it's a massive sculpin. It's like over a foot long.
Oh, here he is. I see him moving.
I see it.
Yeah, see, there he goes.
Looks like some things you buy.
See, he doesn't go very far very fast.
Clean the fish tank,
Yeah.
it's great.
I just tried to slide something for a while. We'll probably see that when we come back. Alright, well, we are going to continue walking down this direction. Down this way is going to be the lowest part of the path we're going to travel today. One is also the active. Most likely we'll get a couple drops running here or there. Some people call those cave kisses, and they're said to do with love. So, maybe just walk out here a little bit more. So once we get to this point, we're officially 180 feet down below the ground. We're about 18 stories below the surface. I know it doesn't really look like that at the moment, but here in just a second, we're going to open up and you'll be able to see the light that goes up. The reason I stopped here is because at the moment, part of this little rocky beach is actually above the water. So if you'd like to walk out there, you can feel the rocks, you can feel the water, you can feel what that is, you can take pictures, you can do that. I promise the beach is solid, not just from here. If you would like to walk out there, then you do have to.
that stuff that grows inside the tree.
Mushroom.
Yeah.
Deep pool right there.
Cool.
Drip on their head. Oh, wow, look at this.
Alright, so as for the water stream over here, that right there is actually a natural freshwater spring that comes deep from the mountain. We have actually tested that water just to see if it's drinkable, and every time we test that, it doesn't normally come back about 97 or 98% pure. So it is actually drinkable water. So I took a drink of it, as did the tour guys. It actually tastes pretty good. Tastes better than we thought it would, honestly. However, we did discover there is actually a downside to this water. Where it runs through the limestone and calcite, if you were to drink this constantly for a longer period of time, it would eventually give you kidney stones. Just because of all the calcium that's in the water, it builds up over time, your body can't break down fast enough, and you get kidney stones. So you probably can drink this for a couple weeks, maybe a month, with no side effects whatsoever. However, I'll probably not make this your main water source. However, we think that's exactly what the farmer did. Because you put beside it, there is a remnants of an old hand pump right there. And we think the farmer actually discovered this water was drinkable, and they would pump this water into buckets, and then he'd haul those buckets of water up out of here. However, instead of taking those buckets all up to the door we came to, that's a really long way, we actually think that he would take a shortcut. And I want to show that shortcut in just a moment, as I'll explain how we got his water out. However, we are going to have to do everybody's least favorite thing. So these we call the exercise stairs. They're fun. They're very steep, so once again, please do take your time. Just go at your own pace. There really is no rush. Once again.
How far did this?
So when the tour guides went and explored it, if you were curious, we got about half a mile back there, and then it got to a point for us where we were about chest deep in water, and to go any farther, you'd have to duck your head down under the water, under the rocks. And we don't know how far to swim, so that's where we left it. If we had scuba gear, we'd 100% try it. We're just not willing to risk it without it, and then scuba gear. So,
Did you went a half mile before you got to that point?
yeah. There's a lot of places back there that'll branch off and go different directions, but like you think, like keep on the main like creek stream to make that happen. Alright. No, not with the hole like that. We commercialized on top of it. We just made it look better, but the water itself is already there.
Yeah, it's probably easy. Hit water that way too.
It is. Sure you're not thirsty?
Oh, so that would bother me.
Well, if somebody's already had kidney stones, I'll pass.
Well, I think you can drink it for a while. You'd be okay. I'm not gonna lie to you. But you could drink it for a couple weeks or months and you'd be completely fine. With no side effects. I just would not push it.
Well, I grew up on spring water. That's probably why I had kidney stones.
His dad's house is still on spring water.
Well, I've seen it be like something like where they use a well at the limestone, like stuff like that, like glasses and stuff, like with pins to it and stuff like that. Just because of housing and stuff. Alright, well, if y'all are ready, we are going to make our way up the stairs here. As mentioned, please do take time, go at your own pace, we'll make our way up.
There it goes.